resumos da COMPUTEX 2025, que ainda temos muitos vídeos para fazer e assim vai-me adiantando aqui trabalho, né? Não posso deixar mais na capital, estamos na próxima COMPUTEX e eu ainda tenho coisas de 2025. Não, mas pronto, vamos tentar indo fazer assim mais. Esta vai ser quase só de um elemento, que é aqui o nosso amigo do Level 1 Tech, e vamos também falar sobre também um dos vídeos da Intel, ok? Para não dizerem que eu estou sempre contra a Intel, vamos então falar. Ele em princípio, este moço aqui do Level 1 é talvez uma das pessoas mais entendidas em termos de hardware para redes de servidores, ok? E depois é mostrar no vídeo dele. Ora, então vamos começar aqui.
It's COMPUTEX 2025, that time of year where all the companies get together in a giant place in Taipei and we take a look at all the stuff that's coming over the next year. Who are you and what is your fealty to NVIDIA?
Cá está ele.
Just how much does one man's decision making affect the GDP output of the planet? The MGX ecosystem should give you an idea. We're not talking about NVIDIA as like driving peripheral integration. We're talking about electrical bus bar, physical cooling, copper interconnects, wire interconnects, PCIe Gen 4, Gen 5, now Gen 6 in the ConnectX 8.
Acho que deve ser das pessoas mais entendidas de hardware. Ok, vamos passar.
By MSI. At the MSI booth, I got to check out NVIDIA DGX Spark. This is MSI and NVIDIA's partnership. This tiny little thing with 120 gigabytes of memory, dual QSFP slots, 4 40 gigabit USB 4. I can't wait to take a look at this, get this in the lab. I want to build a 3-node cluster with these. But this is pre-production hardware. It's not final, but it is pretty exciting to be able to hold it in my hand. Thanks, MSI. Let's take
Acho que vai ser no
I stopped by Arctic to see what
o segundo. Este é o primeiro episódio, Show Floor Part 1, depois temos o 2.
As you know, we've been really big fans of the 4U freezer here on the channel for using in 4U configurations. And don't forget they've got a version of that is slightly less tall than the original 4U version that'll fit in 4U cases where the motherboard is actually.
Cá está, vamos falar dos servidores, né?
Whole plates and rack manifolds and coupling and things like that because again, how are you supporting the megawatt per rack infrastructure that is coming in our not too distant future? Liquid cooling, obviously, and Arctic is on their A game for cooling and fly under the radar a little bit, in my opinion. So it's nice to see their cooling products and the stuff that's here. So the Threadripper 9000 is coming in hot.
Sorry?
Threadripper 9000. The 9000.
Heard of it?
Yeah.
Heard of it?
It's coming in hot. I'm gonna need some cooling.
Yep. We should talk.
I think they might have figured that out. I've been really happy with the 4U for air cooling on basically everything. And
Este gajo é.
So we'll see.
I think so.
They also have a custom solution for 4U. Look at that Arctic fan. Look at that ridiculous airflow. And then this radiator cooling that. So obviously 1,000 watt CPU configurations is what we're into. If you're running a single socket 6980p, for example, Xeon, working upwards of 500 watts, well, you're going to be able to cool that with this giant thick radiator. If you're thinking, oh man, I need a 2-socket version of that, well, they have that. They have that with the giant radiator. So I'm going to need a version of this for 4U with 2 sockets designed for about 1,200 watts of cooling, give or take. So that would be nice. I'm here at
São servidores como deve ser, né?
The 9A40 PCIe Gen 5. And what controller was that? So they did the design and the quality. You can support different kinds of flash media with it, and the performance is really surprisingly good. It's a very solid drive, even after writing 40 terabytes to it. So yeah, it's very good. And you guys have been in business over a decade, 13 years, I think.
13 years. Yeah.
13 years. So yeah, I mean, but you've done such a good job that you've grown, and now you're selling in a larger market.
Eu acho que ele sabe mais do que as próprias pessoas que estão à frente dos boots.
So it doesn't.
Parece.
Your enterprise runs on, but hey, cool, okay, thanks. Silverstone is showing off their rack mount cases, but one of the new improvements is the iSmith 402U and the iSmith 240U. So
Tive uma caixa da Silverstone.
Or 280 watts of cooling, or 400 watts of cooling. And so that will fit in this chassis. You can run an SFX L power supply up to 1,000 watts. I think you can get 1,200 watt SFX L power supplies. You can deal with half height slots.
Fonte de alimentação, cara.
3 slots that are full height. And so this is a bifurcation card. This will go from X16 to 2x8, and it's got an external power input. You guys could probably sell this bifurcation card separately for people to like DIY crazy Franken builds. Using these on ITX is an option on some ITX motherboards. So some people get into that kind of craziness. There's also a 3U, looks like.
Yes.
And so you can use workstation cards in 3U. Now the RTX 6000 Pro would not work in here, but the 6000 Max Q would work, and that's what they've got here, the RTX 6000. Look at that. And that'll work in 3 U's of rack space. You've got 3 2.5-inch bays here, again, SFX or SFXL power supply. You can have the extra deep motherboards and plenty of AI.
São racks, né? É para servidores.
One really dense way to do it. What if I told you you could use a riser? So you can run, that is a 4-slot card in a rack mount configuration with a motherboard underneath it. What sort of madness is this? It's a 3U case that's bigger on the inside. It does require push-pull, and it does require dual rear exhaust, but you can get it done. And there's a 4U case that we're all...
Atenção que este material já é material caro, não é?
AIO here, and this is outfitted with a 3090 and an RTX 4000.
Mas é bom as pessoas saberem daquilo que é possível fazer-se.
This is the updated
Ted Reaper.
5U case from Silverstone. Silverstone has had a 5U rack mount case forever. We just, that's why they were on sale on Amazon. It turns out I just picked up 2. But they added 2 5.25-inch bays to the front. There's a 360mm AIO option at the bottom, and so you can
Armazenamento.
single or dual socket, as we saw, and then you've also got more 60mm fans to pull air from the front. You run dual power supplies, and you got 3 2.5-inch bays, full-size power supply plus a backup SFXL power supply.
Backup da fonte de alimentação, camandro.
2.5-inch bays, get 2.5-inch bays sort of populated along the outer perimeter everywhere. And yeah, fans here.
Melhor nem dizeres o preço disso, que é para a malta não ter ataque.
And yes, this cooler can manage that Threadripper Pro CPU. The biggest thing about this case is it's got the nice 140mm rear exhaust. That really gets the job done. And this cable comes bundled with the little right angle power adapter, which is kind of a pain. 20 amps, 240 volts. Woo! Silverstone also has a SFX power supply that's 1 kilo.
Estas fontes de alimentação deles são muito boas.
Let's see. Oh, it should have 2. That's fine. Yes, well, we can use adapters because we've got enough CPU.
Deixa-me aumentar aqui.
Gonna have to add a temperature sensor to the cable. Now we've taken a look at the dual head 360mm AIO, but just to be clear,
As bordas de servidores são mesmo feias, mas tem que ser, são eficientes.
you really can lose a lot of velocity. So dual pump in this configuration is going to keep that high. But if you're going to go Threadripper, that's not dual socket. The same configuration, but with the thicker radius.
Ted Reaper.
With 700 watts of heat dissipation for the new Threadripper. So it's nice to see that here at the Silverstone booth. One of the innovations.
Ted Reaper novo vem com 700 watts. Nossa.
Downdraft fan cooling around the pump. And this is important for Threadripper because, as you know, Threadripper memory DDR5 can run hot and it can silently throttle. We've seen that on some of our workstation builds. Well, check this out. There's a fan built in and it's movable.
É brutal.
Use multiple fans for multiple sets of,
Brutal.
cooling. It's very nice to have a downdraft fan to be able to do that in a Threadripper.
Yeah, não há hipótese.
Love to try that out. Silverstone was also showing off your next beige build, the ultimate retro build, but it's no compromise.
Esse é retro build. É.
They even have a vertical expansion.
Eu já tive uma caixa destas. Uma não, mais que uma. E ninguém gostava delas.
Yeah, the turbo button is controlling the fan speed.
E aqueles encaixes eram verdadeiros, estes são falsos. O mundo realmente dá umas voltas muito engraçadas.
If you're excited for that, definitely comment or engage below or let me know what you're thinking. I'm here to FSP and they have something really interesting. A 500.
FSP,
How is that interesting? Has a built-in.
que a fonte de alimentação.
It is an extended depth power supply, but it's a standard ATX power supply.
Jesus.
Monitoring out, it also has one USB-C power, but it has control software. It works just like a battery backup, but it's a battery backup that lives inside your computer and will work with your computer as long as it's up to 550 watts. This is a new product, but it's a 0 transfer time when it converts from a failed AC to DC, but it shows you the battery cell status, the number of times it's been charged, and a lot of other interesting status outputs from this. This would be great for a low-power home server. FSP is also showing off a number of new AIO and tower coolers, including a tower cooler that has a built-in temperature sensor. And
Já gosto mais deste tipo de caixas, mais básicos, mais simples.
with your CPU if you don't have motherboard monitoring enabled or something like that. But it is, a display. It's also got a dual tower cooler and a dual tower sort of.
Os coolers também estiveram muito em destaque na feira. Yeah.
Looks oddly familiar, huh? That is a good tower cooler, though. I have some experience with that design.
It's gonna be the big one, 140.
This is a dual 140 dual tower. That's all
Caralho.
effective cooling. situation. 2,500 watts, 200.
2500 watts. É mandro.
Listen, don't be a cheapskate. Just call an electrician. The cost of an electrician installing a 220 volt outlet where your computer is nothing compared to the cost of an RTX Pro 6000 Blackwell. And that's just how it is. This is the Mega TI, available in white or black. And this one is 1650 watts.
Já é material já de topo.
1500 watts. But above 110 volts, most of North America, you're going to get the full 1650 watts. And it has dual 12V 2x6 connections. You got all those PCIe and CPU connections. This is a great workstation motherboard, as long as you're not going to go beyond two 600 watt GPUs. So if you're into small form factor machines, SFX, 1000 watt SFX, 1200 watt SFXL. They also have the new 12V connector and a really good power supply design, 110 to 240 volt input. And
Esta marca não deve aparecer muito cá, pelo menos em Portugal não, e mesmo na Europa.
600 watt GPU in a small form factor machine. We've seen that with the Falcon Northwest Tiki. We see that here. FSP has this example system set up, and look, 5090, no problem. So this little package at 1000 watts, maxing out the 600 watt GPU with an overclockable Ultra 9 285K from Intel in this tiny little heat generating package. Well, that's FSP. G-Skill's here at COMPUTEX and showing off a ton of custom systems.
G-Skill.
Running at DDR5 6400. Hey, wait a minute. That sounds like the new Threadripper specification with very low cast latencies. Lots of systems running absurdly fast. Elmore even took some time out of his busy schedule to show me his system running at 1000 FPS. It's the mad lad doing mad lad things.
Isto vai fazer overclocking.
That's deleted.
G-Skill.
Direct by water block from Thermo Grizzly. Then we have the new GPU block for the
É todo modificado este.
Delta Mate. So that's pulling like
853 watts. Ah, porra!
pulled by the water cool Mora external radiator.
É o radiador disto.
Yeah, we have the CPU overclocked. We're running like about 5.7, a little bit below.
6400 MHz, até pensei que ele ia mostrar uma de 8000, que já existem até mais.
So like just
I think the
Sendo o próprio fabricante.
floor voltage is also only 103 volts.
oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, we should check that. I don't think that would affect it.
Yeah, it depends on the power supply.
But yeah.
The power supply is probably struggling internally a little bit.
Maybe. Could be. So we can actually push it a bit though. We can push it to.
O jogo está a 1000 e tal FPS.
And what we can do is we can unlock the power limit a little bit more, right? So the default.
Mas mal mexeu, foi para 700.
1000 watts. What? No, don't kill it. No.
I think for a little bit it's okay, right? So we just give it the full 1000 watts, right?
Ó, 1100 watts. Azos.
That's 1000 FPS.
Yeah. So then we got this here. Now this is saying
Eles já deram o aviso.
12 power, right? Time to check your system, right? Power supplies on the edge, right?
1200 watts. Ah,
Just a bit.
And you can see like we're still pretty healthy in terms of like CPU times like 58, you know.
Now, I think Linus did a video on this. This is the Asus Astral running at some absurd wattage limit. He maxed the system out at 1200 watts with 9900 X3D plus the Astral 5090. And yeah, this system was running at 5.7 plus gigahertz all cores plus the 5090, drawing upwards of like 900 watts, 1000 watts with the absurd memory speed and 1100 FPS in Hogwarts at about 2000p. Also, Shaggy.
neste jogo, para que é que um gajo precisa de 1000 FPS? Não tem sentido.
11,200 megatransfer.
Não tem sentido.
Even more insanity at G-Skill. What's going on?
Yeah, so this is my LN2 system, which is basically built in order to overclock memory. Currently it is running 11,200 megatransfers per second. I'm gonna push it. Right now I am only waiting if it's stable enough. And yeah, basically it is running liquid nitrogen into the CPU pod. And because inside of the chamber is much colder than ambient outside, it is also cooling the memory partially.
Nice.
And currently it is set to minus 30 degrees Celsius on both CPU and the RAM.
Menos 30 graus.
And memory have integrated heaters on them. So basically if the set point would be or if
E nós aqui andamos com 30 graus de temperatura.
Yeah, I noticed you've got a continuous flow going on here.
Correct. I decided to not control the flow of LN2 in any way, shape, or form. My only means of controlling liquid nitrogen flow are the capillary tubes, which normally would be used on HVAC, like air conditioners and such. And of course, I have valve on the nitrogen tank. But other than that, there is no solenoids, no electronics, nothing.
Well, thank you for pushing everything far beyond the limits.
Yep.
So,
Não, é assim que se testa.
these gentlemen are doing absolutely ridiculous, absurd things. And their systems are absurd. This is a PETG LN2 pot that has been 3D printed.
Yep.
Because again, madman. 3D printed LN2 pot. What is this madness? Madness. And it's adjustable.
Yep.
Obviously, they still need.
Those are typical.
Diz que ele investiu bem em pessoal para fazer estas coisas. Acho muito bem.
Storage and
As memórias, boas memórias, a G-Skill.
Gen 5
E não são das mais caras.
storage in 1U, just 1U. Supermicro also has this. This is a 4-node setup.
Servidores.
2T version. Up to 2T, right? Yep. E1, 2T. So these are double width. You can have more heat sink or more room for physically more room.
São discos da Coxia, né? Kioxia, yeah.
8 drives per node on this.
Bom material também. Para servidores é muito usado.
Depending on which kind of blade configuration you're interested in your 2U 4-node Supermicro. This is the SYS 212 GT HNF from Supermicro.
Supermicro.
R183 Xeon E5 AAD1. It's a mix of E1 and standard U.2 because not every enterprise is ready to adopt all E1 storage all the time. But look, you've got 6 E1 and 8 U.2. I mean, E1 with the kind of density that we're talking about, 16, 32 terabytes per drive versus
Isso é muito dinheiro.
while the enterprise is moving to E1. This is one of the few actual live demos at Kioxia, and this is an optical SSD interconnect running at PCIe Gen 5. So they've got their CM7 SSD in here. They've got some active cooling back here, and then the optical interconnect through here.
É, ligação ótica de armazenamentos.
What's going on with the carrier, but the idea with this is that you can build optical interconnects to your SSDs. PCIe Gen 5, with redrivers and retimers can be a real problem in the enterprise, especially when you have chassis that are 40, 80, 120, 1,000 drives. The optical interconnect here runs a PCIe Gen 5. And actually, this here on the optical side shows that we're doing slightly better in terms of IOPS and read bandwidth, even though the SSD is way, way, way over here.
4 gigas por segundo.
Chassis connected
Oh,
the optical
bonito.
is a more efficient interface, and it's also going to be less complicated because it won't need the redrivers and retimers. This is finally, the promised land of using optics to connect insanely high.
Bonito, tá.
Have things like radio frequency
4.9 gigabytes por segundo.
like that. This is an instant POC bringing the lab to COMPUTEX and showing us mad science of optically connected SSDs. But not only optically connected SSDs that are operating more efficiently than their copper-connected counterparts. I mean, it sounds obvious when I say it that way, but when you see the lab equipment here, let's just talk about it. So the setup here is a normal PCIe Gen 5 desktop machine. There's one SSD connected here through the
PC normal, só com uma ligação diferente.
There's an optical transceiver. That's this card with these optical outputs. And so there's an optical fiber there connecting 4 Gen 5 lanes through this single optical fiber to the breakout board and then to a standard CM7. And that's how this CM7 is connected. But it's actually performing better than the conventionally connected SSD. That is some serious innovation from Kioxia.
Kioxia está
I've got a
está muito evoluída.
check out our other videos. Thanks for watching.
Vamos ver agora o segundo, ok? Já sabem. Sigam aqui o nosso amigo Level 1 Tech. É Wendell o nome dele, ok? Vamos para a segunda parte.
It's time to unveil the technology that's coming over the next year. Let's see what companies got cooking up. The NVIDIA badge is a badge of honor. It's like, we work with NVIDIA, therefore we are a legit company. That is why everybody is very prominently displaying all of their, we work with NVIDIA badges. It doesn't matter if they make copper widgets or wires or power supplies or CDUs or anything. But also look at how upgraded the booths are. I mean, the booths, they spent a lot on the booths because they got a lot of money over the last couple of years because AI money printer go brr.
Passar à frente.
You can kind of tell the Gigabyte has benefited from NVIDIA's money printer significantly. The booth has had some upgrades. And the upgrades to the booth, vaguely reminiscent of a Starship, like just a little bit.
Autonomous sustainability, acceleration to explore the edge of knowledge and reality.
But here they're showing off all of their NVIDIA integration, the AI.
Está.
The 1 megawatt per rack
Jesus.
infrastructure all of the NVIDIA infrastructure, high-density liquid cooling, but also gaming peripherals, high-end graphics cards, motherboards, servers. You know, everybody still needs normal servers, not just the 22 kilowatt per server servers. 115 watts of cooling, sidecar.
Jesus.
From the back, you can see it's just all radiator and compressor and designed for the connection. If you need in-row cooling, they also have a solution.
Gasta mais energia do que uma casa.
Per rack. And this will pave the way for 600 kilowatts per rack. And that's a lot of cooling in a relatively standard rack configuration. This is the B683. This is 10 nodes in 6U. It's available in a dual socket configuration. You can run the 6980p with 12 memory channels, or if AMD EPIC is your preference, you can run AMD EPIC with this as well. This is available in
Só gostava de saber, assim, só assim, curiosidade.
ridiculous density. Also, I want you to pay attention, the memory cooling. DDR5 uses a lot more power and generates a lot more heat than most people realize, so under full load, that could be a non-trivial concern, especially when we're talking about,
A DDR5 sim, já nos SSDs, nos M2, aquecem para Commander.
Gigabyte was showing off at their booth the thing that NVIDIA has been talking about since GTC. This is the Grace Blackwell desktop superchip chassis. This is the platform. This is what Jensen was talking about when he said you would need to run, you know, if you turn the microwave on in the kitchen, there's not going to be enough power to actually connect this thing. This board looks like it's engineered to deal with power budget constraints between the CPU side of things and the GPU side of things. So if your workload is more CPU bound, the CPU is going to get more power. But if the workload is more GPU bound, the GPU is going to get more power. But there's not, for the power delivery that's built here, I don't think you're going to be able to run both at full tilt without overloading a North American power breaker.
É chip da NVIDIA.
This is the COMPUTEX about NVIDIA. This is when you start to realize just how much of the gross domestic product of the entire planet is at the direction of a single individual that's piloting NVIDIA. And Gigabyte was showing off the really high-end solutions they were known for, now with new components, including the ConnectX 8. The ConnectX 8 NIC is technically a Gen 6, PCIe Gen 6 NIC, but it can only talk to certain other NVIDIA peripherals at Gen 6 for right now. Of course,
É incrível como é que estes servidores têm muita procura.
Air-cooled. One of the important things about the
Países asiáticos.
AAL1 is 2 DIMMs per channel.
Podem ser empresas que estejam a verificar.
500 watts per socket for the CPU TDP. So that's optimized for 9005. You're thinking like 9575F running at CPTB all the way to the top? This is probably the chassis to do it in. I looked for new Threadripper boards, but I saw a Threadripper chassis, a server-style chassis, but more Threadripper boards. The Gigabyte AI Top is a truly innovative TRX50 platform. Well, WRX90, TRX50. Well, there's a TRX50 that worked with WRX processors, which is really interesting and weird, but also awesome. So, yeah. And Gigabyte's Gigapod crams 1,000 GPUs in the footprint you see behind me. 1,000 GPUs is sort of what NVIDIA wants to deploy for
Jesus.
the building block of their...
Cada servidor.
There you go. Oh, look at that, a Wild George appears.
Hello.
Have you ever seen 1,000 GPUs in as small of a footprint?
No, it's huge. Like it's huge.
A 1000 GPUs ali, atenção.
And it's also like megawatts.
Ooh, nice. Wait, megawatts in that? That's impressive.
Yeah, well, eventually that's all going to be like 600 kilowatts in one rack.
Ooh, that's spicy.
It's already over $1 million a rack. You know who else has benefited from
$1 cada rack.
They make power strips. Okay, yeah, that's slightly reductive.
É por isso que a NVIDIA deixou os gamers.
Connectors and data center stuff, lots and lots of data center stuff, racks and everything else.
Mas a NVIDIA só é NVIDIA graças aos gamers. Mas é triste, é a evolução.
It's just some white plastic panels and blue peel and stick lettering. This is much nicer. Good job, Schneider Electric. I'm here at ASRock and to take a look at all.
Olha, a ASRock é fabricante da minha placa-mãe, a borda.
COMPUTEX, and they're all AMD. Well, I think
Acho que evoluíram bastante.
OC formula? Yeah, the X870E Taichi OC formula. 2 DIMM slots, 10400 tested and qualified on the board. On an AMD processor.
Acho que foi depois do Gamers Nexus e do Hardware Unbox lhes dar cabo da cabeça.
Not an E motherboard, but giving up E, giving up USB 4, you have 2 direct to CPU.
Melhoraram bastante.
M.2, and your X16 slot still runs at Gen 5 X16. ASRock has created a more desirable X870 motherboard that is not in fact X870E for a lot of common use cases if you're willing to give up USB 4. Also notice lurking at the bottom here, it's an A620 ITX motherboard. A620.
Esta pequena borda também é espetacular.
Dual NICs at the rear. Are you thinking home server? I'm thinking home server. ALC 897, 789, you can get a cheap 8-core EPIC, as long as that works in the BIOS.
Quem quiser fazer PCs pequenininhos, e PC, esta borda é muito boa, atenção.
170 watt CPU, no problem, wow. And 802.11 AXE, Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth. And
Antigamente essas bordas eram um bocado fatelas, mas agora já não.
creator version of the Taichi.
Olha para isto.
Gigabit LAN on board and
Fogo.
USB connectivity. ASRock also has a new X870 live mixer Wi-Fi. Got two X4 slots. It's PCIe Gen 3x4 and PCIe 4.0x4, and then PCIe Gen 5x16. The thing that I always love to see on the live mixer, lots and lots and lots of USB connectivity. This is the 9070 XT Taichi white card. It's a concept card, but
Estas são as gráficas. Eu penso que são as gráficas da AMD, não é? Acho eu.
their idea is to put an LCD on this version.
Acho que é da AMD.
9070 XT Challenger.
Yeah.
More aggressive pricing. That is terrible.
Always a long, very long speech.
Estas é as gráficas Pro para trabalho.
In 8 and 16 gigabytes, and then the Challenger version in 8 and 16 gigabytes. But this is a true 2-slot card. There's some,
Esta é mais pequena, é muito bom.
so it's clocked a little slower, but very similar performance. Single slot. So this is designed for density and high airflow.
One of the cases with the higher flow.
Okay.
É para trabalho. Pro.
V10 running on two Radeon GPUs, rock them basically, and they're pre-trained on their boot staff. So as you walk by, YOLO V10's like, oh, object detection, and then it identifies them correctly. It's pretty awesome. So rock them on GPUs. We're getting close. That's part of AMD's announcements, and it's basically there. ASRock is also launching one new QD OLED monitor, the PGO.
E não. É muito difícil ver monitores da ASRock aqui, pelo menos em Portugal.
Yeah, QD OLED I think is the future of monitors because it's just like the rich deep blacks and the color accuracy and the speed of the panel. There's a lot to love about OLED. There really is. ASRock's doing power supplies now, and we took a look at the Steel Legend.
Power supply também, muito raro ver.
Up to 1200 watts, dual 12V6 power connections, and a lot of really interesting things going on as far as new power supply connectors. But there's something pretty innovative with the power supply setup here at ASRock, and I'm gonna have to show it to you for it to make sense.
Tem conector diferente.
Feature that we've seen in an age. ASRock power supplies, the Taichi and the Phantom Gaming have a special temperature sensor built into the NVIDIA style 12V2 power.
Olha, muito bom. Sensor de temperatura.
For temperature sensing at the GPU end, the power supply will turn off if the cable hits 95C, meaning
Ora,
melting situation, because beyond 95C, the integrity is compromised. Now, the green part of the connection,
olha, vamos ver.
you shove that all the way in.
Eu acho que isto devia ter sido. A NVIDIA devia ter criado isto.
Steel Legend power supply, but the Steel Legend power supply that I have doesn't have the temperature sensor. They've added the temperature sensor to the 80 plus gold and 80
As gráficas continuam a ter casos de conectores a derreter.
6000 Blackwell, or you're worried about those high current cards, the 600 watt cards, having a connector issue, get this, because the temperature sensor is built into the cable. How could that possibly go wrong? Wooting gets a mention in this video, not just because they make a damn fine
Uting. Hã? Uting. Não conheço.
near and dear to my heart, but also because they spent some time, at least their customer service did, figuring out some problems with the KVM and why their keyboards didn't work in HID mode, even though they're fancy and programmable and do all kinds of stuff. The problem
Lá
was,
está, este Wendell mostra coisas que os outros youtubers não mostram.
and so thanks, that's
Este
amazing.
teclado está fantástico.
Check out the keyboards. Yeah, Wooting. Also stopped by Acceleram because they actually do burn-in.
Accelerator não era memória?
And up to DDR5 8400.
É, memória.
8400. That's not CUDIM, that's just UDIM. But they qualify on Intel, and then they move it from an Intel platform to an AMD platform and do 2 more tests to verify that it's actually going to work correctly. So a lot of the time, just the volume of manufacturing that happens, there's not always time to do actual testing once it's fully assembled. The chips are tested individually, but after it's applied to the package and everything else, it's like that process usually doesn't go wrong, but sometimes it does. And so it's nice to see a memory company that actually does explicit burn-in testing, and it's also part of their marketing. There's a lot of loudness and flashing lights at the Asus booth, so
Pronto, isso é material ROG.
they're showing off all kinds of blinking lights.
Republic Game é para pagar coisas que não têm interesse.
And also the gamer peripherals and stuff that was at the press event. So there's a lot here in terms of custom cases and typical Asus stuff, and some updated motherboards and pretty interesting stuff. Asus has done a good job of documenting all that in their press releases and online stuff, though. So check that out if you're interested in gaming peripherals and that kind of thing. I didn't really see too much off the beaten path, though. 5090 laptop GPU connected with USB 4 to the Flow Z30.
É, isto é uma gráfica que se liga a portáteis.
Blah blah blah. But you could add a
Custa tanto como o portátil.
That's an option. It's like a docking station, but not. And with a 5090 mobile built in. And wired Ethernet, which is also going to run over USB. Now, the cable is Thunderbolt 5. This device is Thunderbolt 5, but this is USB 4. So I'm completely unhinged. I'm here at ASUS, and the Flow Z13 was hooked up to the 5090, the mobile docking station with all the stuff. There was no driver, so I used my hotspot, and we installed the driver, and we installed CPU-Z. All right, so this is ROG Flow Z13. They let me download GPU-Z, and yeah. 8060 asks, is this is the Flow 13? Oh, we don't have the drivers for the. I gotta get the drivers. Okay, hang on. All right, we're just gonna do the graphics driver. We don't need the.
Eu não tinha os drivers. Que tinha isto ali e não estava com isto. Ai meu.
To the 5090 so we can.
A sério.
This is madness. Oh my. The device manager looks so much more healthy now. Yeah, it's finished.
Aquela é uma 5090.
As you can see, this thing is still beastly even with the USB 4 connection on the Flow Z13. So if you want an external 5090 mobile docking station with Ethernet and USB and everything else, well, ASUS has that. And
É. Brutal.
I wish it had OcuLink, but you know, I get why they wouldn't add that. That's like a weirdo, like this crazy person rando thing. But it is Thunderbolt 5, which is 80 gigabit both ways, so that is nice. 24 gigs of VRAM and an external dock just seems absurd though, but hey, it's working.
Brutal.
This is the ProArt B-roll. This is their ProArt SSD built into the 5080.
É uma outra ASUS também.
PCB. So if it was like an X8 plus X4, I wouldn't expect the last 4 lanes on the card connector to have been routed. But that does appear to be the case. The 5080 SSD edition is also the only 5080 in the market with a Type-C connection. So you get dual DisplayPort, Type-C, and HDMI for the I/O. So if you're running VR,
Yeah.
certain types of content creation, having the USB-C port is handy, and this is the 5080 that has that. So the situation with the 5080 and the M.2 is that the card will run.
Caixas com estilo madeira.
Five lanes are used for the M.2. That leaves 4 unused PCIe lanes, but a lot of motherboards, certain ASUS motherboards, will route those lanes to an M.2 on board. So you,
Como eu digo, pessoalmente, já não gosto muito, mas para escritórios.
depending on the motherboard, with 2 M.2, but it's just that one of those will be carried by your GPU. Now, I've got a lot more to cover at COMPUTEX. Be sure to check out our other videos. Thanks for watching.
Ok, aí está. Sigam o Wendell. Ok? E agora vamos o último, que acho que é uma entrevista que ele faz com a Intel. Não sei o que é que ele vai falar ali.
Intel Arc Pro. This
Ah.
they're building the Battle Matrix,
É as gráficas
which seems
de trabalho da Intel.
16 gigabytes and a 70-watt card. This one
It's that one.
is the 48 gig, but it's actually 2 GPUs on one card. So it's 2 24 gig GPUs on one card. 24 gig on the single card. This is the B60, and that's the B50. So Intel is heading in exactly the direction we all wished that they would. When the A7
Pá, eu gostava muito que a Intel
actually a really good card. It does a lot.
estivesse muito bem com as gráficas.
But they're also pivoting in the AI direction. And I have here with me,
I'm Chi. I manage discrete GPUs at Intel.
and we're going to talk about it. So let's dive in.
Porque é preciso concorrência. É preciso concorrência.
Travel expenses for COMPUTEX paid for by MSI. MSI has a new line of QB NUCs with enterprise and business class features and enterprise and business class warranties designed for Windows 11 Pro based around the Core Ultra 9 288V or the Core Ultra 7 285V. 48 tops, 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5, ARC graphics 140V. There's a lot to like about these mini PCs, especially the business class aspect. So be sure to check out my coverage of that. And now on with the rest of the video.
So we've got a bunch of partner cards here, and
Isto é para trabalhar, atenção, é as versões Pro.
this ecosystem is so vibrant and changing so fast. There are people asking for big cards, small cards.
Esta gráfica, 16 GB, esta gráfica.
There we go. All this stuff. So we've decided to just turn on all the switches, turn everything on. You got your workstation drivers. You've got your SIRV coming later this year. You've got manageability features. You've got cards with 2 GPUs, passive cards, active cards, axial, radial, all the variations, because the ecosystem is just growing so fast and we can't keep up. And so we're letting our partners, the growing partner ecosystem, build out and service all these different use cases for us.
Now, the thing that's exciting for me is that we followed the bring up of, the A series cards.
É, quando ele apresentou.
Merging in XE graphics and the support ecosystem, everything that's there has been extremely well handled in my opinion. And from the roadmap, we were chatting a little bit earlier, it sounds like everything's going to follow that same sort of trajectory, which is great in terms of Linux integration and kernel integration and good stewards of the open source angle of it, but now also inferencing and client stuff. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so Intel's always been a friend of open source. We work really hard in making sure that the open source drivers are upstreamed. And this is going to be a journey, which we're just embarking on.
Não se esqueçam que se usarem gráficas da Intel, especialmente para gaming, tem que ter o Recessive ativo, ok? se não perdem acima de 20% de performance. Eu já avisei isso no outro dia.
AI optimized software stack, as well as systems that have been validated with that software stack.
So containerization, it just means that as I, as lowly developer, sit down at my Battle Matrix workstation, which in this case we have Xeon W3495 and 3475X systems that have 4 GPUs in them, and they're doing everything over PCIe, which is a lot of fun. But as a lowly developer, I sit down at such a workstation and I do my coding and I do all my other stuff. And because it is a containerized workload, when I deploy that to the cloud or whatever other AI infrastructure my company has bought, those containers will work properly, or at least that's the promise from Intel.
Exactly. Intel has so many different components that we deliver in so many different technologies, including OneAPI, IPEX, Intel Python extensions, OpenVINO, exactly, and of course our driver stack. That we have to make sure that it's easy for developers to generate.
Os drivers, no início, quando eles lançaram as novas gráficas para gaming, foi um bocado perigoso. Mas pá, nós temos o caso da Nvidia, que está há uns anos no mercado e está com o problema da série 5000.
So somebody put together one agent to parse the logs and like add debugging symbols or whatever, and another agent to go and figure out what those things meant.
Chegaste, tem ali um gajo que está com muita tosse. Houve muita gente a apanhar a Covid aqui nesta exposição. Também são centenas de pessoas, milhares de pessoas.
Oh yeah, this is doing really high-level developer stuff that a junior-level developer could learn from.
Yeah, we're not quite in the like the robotic Terminator future yet, but we're trying to make the world better and make it easier for even junior developers to be very productive with our tool set. The Lunar Lake demo, where we fixed the software or the software decoder, is an example where you can take days of engineering work down to hours. And I think over 20% of our software engineering is already AI enhanced today at Intel.
Now, walk me through some of the other demos for Battle Matrix, because you also have retrieval augmented generation that makes things a little easier from a developer's perspective, and you also have some other demos where you can immediately use 4 GPUs. And the important thing to understand is that this is happening over PCIe Gen 5, 32 gigabytes per second in a bidirectional configuration, and you don't need any kind of special connectivity or anything like that, but you're able to split, models and run multiple layers on different GPUs and still get pretty reasonable performance out of the system.
Yeah, so in engineering, especially at Intel, you're working with lots of different documentation, whether it's what we call an internal architecture BSpec or data sheets of different chips. And to be able to combine all of those together makes it a lot easier for engineers to not have to search and compare different data sheets with different references and things like that. And that is all what we call context in AI, right? So the context is...
Espero bem que eles continuem neste caminho e que reforcem. Só que a Intel está com problemas graves. Acho que já vai despedir mais uma data de centenas de pessoas, assim como a Google fez, como a Microsoft fez. Complicado. Na Nvidia, o Jason disse que não gasta despedir. Bem. Como é óbvio, com a inteligência artificial a entrar pesado, eles têm que despedir pessoas, não?
You can just run a model that talks to your home assistant and does things, and 16 gigs of VRAM and 70 watts is very attractive for that use case. But 48 gigs, you could run 2 of those in a system, have 4 GPUs effectively, 192 gigabytes, and total cost is going to be in the ballpark of like $2,000-3,000.
Well, we don't set the prices for our partners yet, but no promises, but maybe something like that. Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting that it's not tens of thousands of dollars to get 192 gigabytes of memory. So you can run.
Vamos ver.
So very nice, cool. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Preço final e depois as tarifas.
What's going on to the CPU side of the Intel business? Well, there is Intel 200S series refresh, which are desktop parts that will use higher bandwidth memory. And not necessarily CU DIMM, could be regular DIMM as well, 256 gigs fully qualified on their platform.
Como digo, o Wendell é dos gajos com mais conhecimento de hardware.
And partners that are building mobile.
Especialmente hardware de servidor.
Superbuilder
É muito bom mesmo. Já fosse com
whatever else you're running for compute in order to help you build AI models to do things like retrieval augmented generation or anything like that. So check that out and let everybody know what your experiences were in the comments below, because this actually looks pretty innovative and had just dropped like on GitHub like maybe 8 hours before I saw it. And so that does actually look really promising. They demoed a fairly elaborate thing that was built with it that used the TripAdvisor API, and so you could build this sort of agentic AI, which we also saw in the GPU presentation. Like there were a bunch of.
Ele também gosta muito de Linux. Nos vídeos dele também fala muitas vezes. Para quem gostar de Linux, já sabe.
Trying to find good deals on flights and hotels using the API interface. This is kind of the promise of what Web 3.0 was supposed to be. It was supposed to be an API interface, and some of the APIs existed, but then the will to build software to interface with the APIs never really happened. But now that we have AI to figure that out, maybe we'll see it. Intel also had one other demo that's kind of difficult to explain. They were playing Black Myth Wukong, but they had an AI agent running on top of it that was giving you gameplay advice. And so it was doing a little bit of analysis of what was going on the screen, but there was also a text interface where you could talk to the AI and ask it things about strategy and that sort of thing. So
Isso aí acho que não, porque isso pode ser usado depois para cheatar.
dedicated GPU. Now this is kind of light on details. You know, with laptops, you're usually like thermal dissipation limited, power limited. And so if the CPU is doing more than running the game, then maybe you'll have a TDP limit. But in terms of computation, the NPU doing most of the
Tem que focar nos drivers deles, não é? Ainda tem que evoluir bastante.
capabilities. But I'd really want to on this to see.
Performance também mais um bocado, mas a performance, sendo a segunda geração, já está muito boa.
For that. But there was for GGQ, real-time AI game guide of playing coach. I don't know anything about this game or the platform, but they said it was coming out May 26th. So it's right around the corner. And this is something that's going to run on the NPU and the iGPU while the game is running on your dedicated GPU to give you game coaching advice. Okay. The other thing that Intel teased, but they didn't really tease because they were available for you to play with, was Panther Lake, Intel 18A. They had two demo systems set up with Intel 18A where you can see like the platform that they bring up 18A on. Well, Panther Lake is on the 18A process. And so this is maybe an indication that the 18A process is healthy and is going to perform well. They were also demonstrating that partner designs may actually be kind of far along on Panther Lake stuff. I mean, that's supposed to come at the end of the year, right? And into 2026. That's kind of what the impression I get from the slides. And so these are more or less complete looking laptops. And there was also a small form factor PC. And they were demoing DaVinci Resolve, doing things like rotoscoping and that sort of stuff in minutes instead of the hours or days that it might take an operator to do manually. So okay, neat. But yeah, Panther Lake, and they also had Panther Lake die shots, so you can see the CPUs and the close-ups, that sort of stuff. So yeah, Panther Lake, Intel 18A, but...
Falando isso, a AMD também vai apresentar uns novos AMDs, depois vou mostrar. E pronto, o Wendell, já sabem, vejam o canal dele, sigam, subscrevam, porque ele em termos de conhecimento, pá, está muito à frente de nós normais, não é? Prontos, ficamos então aqui. Esta é a edição, é o 8º episódio de Resumos da COMPUTEX 2025, hoje com o Level 1 Tech, com o Wendell, e com entrevista também exclusiva também com malta da Intel e de todo o pessoal. Ok? Muito obrigado, continuação e até uma próxima. Fui.